Welcome. Okay, SPX daily chart in front of you, and I'm just going to go over my thread. So basically, we can see obviously we have a nice bullish trend here. Daily recovered nice off of these November lows, broke this upper trend line. That's what we were looking for some continuation, and now we are going a little sideways, likely into the Fed meeting on the 10th. So that's why I got this little kissy face emoji here. We kissed 68.95. You can see up here 68.95, 78. We said we were planning on hitting some resistance around 6900, 6920 all-time highs. We're pretty much there. So we had a pretty good handle on where we were heading. We've hit that point, and now we're going to look into this week for the Fed meeting. So the trend is still up. SPX, QQQ, everything is in bullish structure. But the next 1 to 3 weeks, we can expect some chop, consolidation, maybe a quick scare lower before the Santa rally kicks off in December. Some of the stats from Stock Traders Almanac, for example, most of the so-called January effect takes place in the last half of December. So over the years, we reported annually the fascinating January effect, showing that small cap stocks handily outperformed large cap stocks during January 40 out of 43 weeks between 1943 and 1995. Readers saw that cats and dogs on average quadrupled the returns of blue chips in this period. Then the January effect disappeared over the next 4 years. So basically, a strength possibly going outperform is going to be IWM. We've been talking about IWM for most of the year. And as we can see here, we are breaking out, attempting to break out here. If we look at the weekly, um, we did make new all-time highs from this February, and now we are making new all-time highs. So something we can focus on besides the SPX, I think, if we get over, so the high of this candle is 252.66. I think a close over 250, let's say 252.75, something like that. And we can likely target. Let me tell you what looks good. So the breakout of this candle here. Let's see where that extension lies. All right. So from this breakout here above this, I mean 267. 267 looks very likely. So we can day trade IWM. We can swing trade IWM if we get a close above this last week's candle. We should likely get some continuation. So keep an eye on that. QQQ lagging a little bit. I'll bring that chart up here. Here's a weekly chart, Qs. Here's a daily chart. Similar look to the SPX, but there's a likelihood that tech pulls back a little bit. So we're gonna kind of look for some consolidation, some chop, potentially heading into this week. That's basically kind of what's holding us back, I think, from pushing up. That's one of the factors. NVDA, as we all know, doesn't quite match where we've been. In retrospect, it's been leading the market. It was leading the market up until October, and now obviously we've had this pretty substantial pullback. Still Still okay, but I don't think that the market's going to rally to new all-time highs until NVDA and the Qs kind of join the party. So um, weekly MACD signal also still negative. And then the other thing that's important is the 10-year. Very important to keep an eye on this. So there's a little bit of room to run here. If you look on this weekly chart of TNX, um, you know, this level right around 430, 428 here, if we break this trend line up, this is likely going to get tested. And if that happens, we could very well get a decent pullback in the SPX. Also, risk on indicator, risk off indicator is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still not out of the woods yet. So I do think that this could potentially break down a little bit further. But this resistance here is getting important. This is going to be kind of a key level to watch here. We got to get above this 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 basically this turn down here from um, the middle of November to kind of start pushing back up here. So 90, about 95, 96, we want to reclaim that level right about there on a daily, weekly basis before we can feel a little more confident about a push higher and everything else. Um, you know, once Bitcoin recovers this 103 level, basically swing high to swing low, I think it's right back to all-time highs if it can recover that kind of near term. And then we can look at a bunch of the sympathy plays. Also, obviously, Ethereum is a big one. Ethereum is part of our BMNR play, and we're basically looking for this similar scenario here. Break this trend line up here, and then kind of recover this 3,500 level. And a lot of the sympathy plays, the miners should rally pretty hard. A lot of the small cap stuff. So that's something that we want to keep an eye on. So basically, Bitcoin, TNX, and obviously the Qs going to be pretty important. So from a risk reward, right now we're still like, hey, let's see if we can let's see how this week kind of progresses with the Fed rate. I mean, that's pretty much priced 100% priced in at this point, but the tone is what's going to really make make a big difference in how the market kind of reacts. So with that being said, let's just take a look at um, some of the levels on a closer look that we can kind of look out for. So I'll start on the weekly per usual, and we'll work our way down. So here is last week's range, and as you've seen me do many times before, I just like to take a snap from the high to the low. Look at what our 50% mark is. So 68.48 is kind of our weekly pivot off of last week. And obviously 68.95 is our resistance. So a push above 68.95 gets us to all-time highs, 69.20-ish. And should we break down, which I think is, I don't want to be, I want to be neutral biased, but I'm a little bit leaning for a little bit of breakdown for just because volatility heading into the Fed meeting, potentially breaking down this 6,800 level. We might kiss 67.42 at the very least. And then I think kind of worst case scenario, 66.50, something like that. So this is a weekly candle. So this is kind of like what the weekly range might look like. Um, if we go in a little bit closer, and we look at what could possibly be going on for tomorrow overnight. Here's the SPX here, and you can see here this is very much more in line with touching potential all-time high before possibly coming back down. So the extension, the 1618 on this daily candle here, is 69.20ish, and then the midway point is 68.77. And should we break down 68.58, 68.35 is on the table. So yeah, that's basically what I'm going to be looking for, and I will come up with our plan as we get closer to the open tomorrow morning. That's basically all I wanted to cover. And I can also take questions and whatnot, but that's basically my rundown on SPX and some of the things to look for this week.